So this week, I attended the NECA BICSI Summit. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, project foremen, project managers, estimators, area managers, customers, and all ICT personnel. We are connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being created? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm so we can educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream, Ask Chuck Bowser RCDD, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD questions about design, installation, certification, project management, estimating, even career path questions. I can hang up, but Chuck, I'm driving my truck on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. I don't want to get into an accident and crash. That's okay. I got you. They're recorded, and you can watch them on our website at letstalkcabling.com. And finally, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you would like to support this show, would you mind clicking on the QR code or scanning the QR code right there with your phone? There you can send me a cup of coffee. You can even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me, after hours, of course, and help support the show. This week, I was in Denver, Colorado, attending the NECA BICSI Summit, June 26th to the 28th in 2023, in case you're listening to this show in the future. This is a historical event for the Let's Talk Cabling podcast because we were there as press, covering the events, talking to people, and getting to know the two industries better. Now, NECA and BICSI are two industry giants. One of them represents electrical contractors. The other is a membership organization representing the low voltage industry. We are brothers from a different mother. So they brought us together and had a host of sessions that you could attend, from everything from digital disruption to class 4 fault management, how to sell POE, even why does project management fail contractors. Every single one that I attended was just absolutely worth my time. And the best part was when I got to go into the exhibit hall afterwards. I stopped by every single booth, talked to everybody there. Lots of great content coming up from those conversations. I also had the opportunity to interview Jeff Beavers, the executive from NECA, and Carol Everett Oliver, the current BICSI president. And we talked about those two, the event that week. Now, originally, I filmed it in portrait mode because I anticipated this going out to TikTok and Instagram. But after I got done watching it, I was like, this has to go out to the podcast. So I apologize for being filmed in portrait mode, but it's such good content. You have to hear this. So here are those two interviews. So I'm here in Denver. You probably wonder, why is Chuck in Denver? I'm at the NECA BICSI Summit, and I'm walking around, and I managed to catch Jeff Beavers, RCDD OSP, former BICSI president, and now he works for NECA. Let's introduce him. Mr. Jeff, who are you?
Hey, good morning. It's great to be here with you. Chuck, thanks for your time as well for being here. And welcome to Denver. It's a beautiful city, and it's great, you know, for many from Texas and others where it's 100 and something degrees. It was a good escape. But anyway, it's great to be here. But more important than that, a lot of great sessions. And boy, for the curious minded, which we all need to be in a constantly changing industry, it's great. It's great to be here, and great learning opportunities.
So the majority of my audience is low voltage. They may not know who NECA is. So give us the 30-second, 50,000 foot view. Who is NECA?
Well, NECA has the E being electrical. NECA has been around for 120 years since the start of electricity. And NECA and IBEW started around like 1901 and founded this association to handle this thing called power. You know, DC was first, but had issues with transmitting power long distance. So they had this brand new fangled thing called AC, but like our industry, it was new and no regulation, no competency, no licensing, no fire code. So they had to work early on to create competency and work to create the first ever building code to address that. Fast forward 120 years. Here we are, but half of our members do network integration, work on data centers, things like that. So if it delivers power or signal, it's what we do. And so as we recruit new apprentices or whatever who hear about latency and the cloud and network integration, 5G, we have to tell them, hey, although NECA, the E stands for electrical, it's everything with connectivity. That's NECA in a nutshell.
You and I had a really great conversation Monday morning because Chuck got here a little bit early. I got like 4 or 5 hours early, and we had a conversation about an hour, and we talked about the workforce. I want to kind of revisit that. We mentioned that you thought that 20% of the workforce was certified. So I did an informal poll on LinkedIn. Of course, it's no big pool of things. It's not any official thing, but 75% said they were certified or had some kind of certification. But that also might be tinged because it's on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's professional, right? I need to do that on TikTok. I want to talk about why do we, what's the bridge? Because I talked about certification, and you mentioned another word to bring us all together for the future, to make everything better. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, when you poll your audience, Chuck, I imagine that they're the audience who's already engaged in seeking knowledge and constantly curious, and those are the ones who pursue certifications, which is voluntary. It's not mandatory, and so it's a value to their customers that they serve to have the knowledge and stay up abreast. I think that's the exception. If you look at studies from Fluke Networks, cable installation maintenance, and maybe even CommScope and others talk about 8 out of 10 network problems are cable related or problems with the physical layer. The physical layer being the structured cabling is a foundation, and you got the network switches and routers and the coding and on there. But that is the source of the cable problems because it's largely unlicensed, unregulated. But it's a perfect storm of that with exponential growth and technology in decline, not just the number of laborers in the market, but the competency of those. And so imagine things like, hey, if it was just a fax machine and it didn't work, you just wait or find another port with dial tone, but now you got data and you got power, and you have to deal with the current carrying capability of cabling and connectivity. And then of course the know-how. Again, imagine putting power on something that has 8 out of 10 failures as the cable. And connectivity now is an issue. And then as we look to 2030, Chuck, in 2020, futurists said we're going to see more advancements in this decade than the previous 100 years. And that 100 years was the start of electricity, but this 10 years are going to see more of that, and we're witnessing that, but we're also playing a part in that transformation. So not just power, now at 90 watts, at fault managed power, but now we're having self-driving cars that are on the network. It's just another application. And then now there have been proof of concept testing doing remotely performed surgery on the network using 5G, fiber optic communication. So from Europe to California, there's a video out there. They're doing surgery on a banana. Now, what makes that happen is with the ultra low latency is they're being able to transmit the sense of feel on the network, and that's haptics. So imagine what the sense of feel does. I mean, you have that on your phone. You have a haptic setting, so you can feel the keyboard. A gaming console has haptics for that feedback, for realism. But now that's going to find its way to healthcare and telemedicine and remotely performed surgery that's going to rely on a reliable, ultra low latency network. That same network that has 8 out of 10 failures are cable related. So it's an issue that we'll have to address, and I think the technology is happening faster than society can address it. And sadly, sometimes regulation happens after tragedy. So we got to work together to address that.
You're right, there's a lot of critical networks on there now, especially when you got the cable failures. With that being said, what's the solution? We have voluntary certification now, but not every state requires certification. Matter of fact, a lot of states don't require certification. A lot of states don't require licensing. What's the best solution for these critical infrastructures on network so we don't have somebody dying on the operating table because somebody unplugged the wrong patch cord?
Yeah, real quick, Chuck. It makes us nervous, or me nervous, because I'll be sharing a crosswalk with people who are, and also self-driving cars. Right now, you could have a visual cue with the driver to say, "Hey, man, I got you. I see you in the crosswalk." Now you can hope that car is going to be able to do a round trip, see and stop within like a thousandth of a second. So that stuff makes me nervous. But then imagine going to your doctor now. You say, "Hey, doctor, let me see your diploma. I see it on the wall. You have your malpractice insurance. Let me look in the telecom room and see how that is." And imagine now, without regulation, let's just use our medical care. The medical industry is largely regulated. You have doctors, you have extensive training, nurse practitioners, you have medical technologists who work on the robots. Those surgical robots have to have FDA approval, so heavily regulated. Now you're going to transmit it over the network on an unregulated, unlicensed, which should be part of the whole system. The surgery system should include the physical layer. So how do we deal that? Well, it's really largely this. If just as the voice, data, video people had their battles early on, they had to work together to address this. Now we're having power as another application, bringing in the electrical side. Well, we are all challenged by the 80% who aren't seeking certification because it's voluntary. Why do I need to spend more money for a certification if I can get the work now? So I think it's really creating a grassroots effort locally to address, to lead with education to the authorities having jurisdiction, the end users, the state officials, to drive this need for competency. Regulation is, for regulation's sake, is not good. There are some things that we want regulation, especially when it's life safety, and we're rethinking life safety on a daily basis. So just 20 years, it was telephones, fax machines, and TV was entertainment. Now that network is driving mission critical applications, and so we need to rethink life safety, work together to change our culture.
All excellent points. Let's shift the conversation now to the summit. How did you come up with the curriculum for the summit? Because you guys had project management, power over Ethernet, disrupting the cycle, which I think if I had to choose my favorite, it's going to be a tie between Christopher Hobbs' project management seminar and the disruptor. And it's funny because when I looked at the online thing and I saw the description for the disruptor session, I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound interesting. But I tell you what, that guy made some really valid points. So how did you guys select the material to bring here at the summit? And to follow up with that, are you going to do another summit in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. How do we gauge what the audience is in need of? And some of the things is like we think that they need it, but they may not be asking for it, or they might be asking for it secretly, like cybersecurity. We have two topics today on cybersecurity, and we try to address it in two fronts: corporate policies, personal policies, because we all have cell phones, not just for texting and for purchasing, but we also have cell phones that are connected to our corporate network. So that's one thing, corporate policies. Think before you click. And we're seeing a rise in premiums. They're up 40% this year, and they continue to rise. But now that we're touching networks that are all connected, we're also looking at the IT and OT. By virtue of the products we buy, we have to be aware of cybersecurity. If you think back to the Target store breach a few years ago with tens of millions of people's data was hacked, I think they came in through the HVAC contractor. So what we're trying to create awareness is like, you don't want the FBI coming to your door and saying, hey, we're from Washington and we're here to talk to you. So it's two parts. So that was one. And we work with BICSI, but one thing is with NECA, we have a Technology Systems Integration Task Force. There's about 20 contractor representatives from each coast, several districts, and some of those are small to medium-sized firms, and some are like bigger companies that are like half a billion or larger, who have low voltage projects that are hundreds of millions of dollars in scope. So they represent our demographic in a large area of different skill sets and technologies. But we couple that with a survey that we do through our magazine, the 2022 profile of our contractor. And among those things are, what are the areas that you're seeking to gain knowledge in, whether it's lighting controls or sustainability, cybersecurity. We gauge that. We work with BICSI Partly because we also want to bring value, not just in education, but a lot of our attendees are BICSI credential holders. So we want to get it verified or validated through BICSI for the approval credit. And also sometimes we work on an aggressive timeline where we don't really have a call for presentations. So we say, hey, here's the topics we want. What can you give us? We work closely with Gail Moore-Swaby at BICSI, and she says, hey, here's what we got. These are available, they're engaged. And so that's how we come up with our topics. And so really, it's just a really kind of a gauge to see what our attendees want. But we also, as experts in our industry, we try to do a 5-year look ahead. You know, prepare you for what's going to happen because things happen so quickly these days. And yeah, looking forward to the next one, how it's going to be and how it's going to be shaped. You know, we have a short attention span in our society. You know, I think that the 30-second TV commercial is too long. So now you have a 6-second to get their attention. Probably the same thing with the life cycle of an event. You know, we still want to bring the content to our members. Is it going to have a new title, new brand? So anyway, just keeping it fresh. But we want to have these, is it yearly or every other year? We don't know. Our industry changes so fast. We can't help but have events and educational seminars out there.
I think you guys hit the mark on the head with all the educational content you added, because every session I sat in, I was absolutely floored. And I want to thank you again for affording me the opportunity to come to this event and document it.
Yeah, hey, I joked with you on it was a LinkedIn or Facebook somewhere. Maybe Dan Munson posted. You said you're going to be there, and I said I'm here. I'm just here for the stickers. And although I did have the stickers, and thank you for that, that's not the only reason why I'm here. I always enjoy the opportunity to talk barbecue with you, and Kansas City barbecue versus the whatever stuff you get down there, McRib or you know. But
McRib? Really? No. So Kansas City barbecue is the second best barbecue out there. My barbecue is obviously the best because I grow my own pigs and I have my own rub, but I don't serve it to anybody. So the next time you come to Florida, you have to give me a little bit heads up to make sure I'm home, and we'll share some barbecue.
Speaking of barbecue, we have the KC, we have the American Royal, the nationally known. It's the mecca for barbecue. So that's KC's got that going for it. So whether it's number 1 or number 2, and then you got Dan Munson, who was also here.
He's number 3
with Leviton. He told me years ago, he's been like a mentor to me for barbecue. I said, Dan, here's my setup. I got this propane. He says, number 1, get rid of propane. So that was his first tip. And I have a Frankenstein grill. It's formerly propane. I took it out, welded up a smoker box, and I do that kind of old school. But I'm like you probably, where you start with good meats and grass-fed meat, nothing that's been corn sprayed by the crop duster, right? And then like a dry rub. And it's too easy to put sauce on it. I like it where it's good enough to where it just falls off and you don't need sauce. But it's great to connect with Dan, not just on a personal basis, to share thoughts on barbecue. Again, subject matter experts and industry leaders who are here and bringing relevant content to our industry. And really, we want to, it's not just for the experts in the industry. We open this up for the inspectors, the fire marshals. We're leading with education because they're partners in this too. They're signing off on stuff that sadly I think that they don't know. In fact, I presented to a state fire marshal group. I'm not going to say which state, but I said, hey, how do you keep up with the standards and codes for structured cabling? And the fire marshal said, I just asked my contractor. And so you hope the contractor's not leading you astray, but there's a lot of that. So we have a lot of work to do, and I think it's going to take all of us to change the culture and address competency.
Welcome to the morning coffee chat. This morning I got a very special guest. First female BICSI president, Carol Everett Oliver, RCDD, DCDC, ESS. Oh my gosh, she's got more letters behind her name than I have behind mine. And I'm also fortunate enough to call her friend. Welcome to the coffee chat show this morning.
Thank you, Chuck.
So, what was your favorite part of this summit?
Oh, that's a good question. I loved the exhibit hall. I was anxious to see exhibitors that I hadn't seen at the BICSI conference, so that was fun. But the sessions, like you said earlier, every single session was awesome. The most difficult part was trying to pick which one you're going to go to, because they had 3 concurrent ones a lot of the time. So I really like the camaraderie between the electrical contractors and the low voltage contractors.
I'm glad you keyed in on that, because I'll admit that I had a little bit of hesitation when I was like, oh, I'm going to go. Wait a minute, there's going to be electricians there. But I've found that, especially just listening to the comments in the sessions and stuff, they were asking the exact same questions I probably would have asked. So I mean, we're the same. We're the same, and I really like the fact. And I like the fact that now the 2 big industry giants are coming together to foster a relationship so we can kind of move forward. What can we do as an industry to make that relationship better?
It was really interesting. I talked to a few, not a whole lot, but a few of the electrical contractors, and they were even stating that they were going to attend the BICSI conference that's coming up in Las Vegas in the fall. And I think having joint education and exhibits and trade shows and events like that can only, foster the partnership. And I think that's going to be a really good idea. Also, not only on the national level like this was, but also looking at what's going on in the individual regions and communities out there that they can work together.
What we can do as an industry to attract more young people, more diverse people to this industry, because we've always been bad at that.
That's another loaded question, because the younger generation, they're not looking to become members of associations. They're looking to find something on YouTube or education instead of sitting in the classroom. They want to have an interactive. So I think number one, having interactive education, which BICSI does have. I think also face-to-face. It's difficult now because, you think about the younger generation and what happened with COVID, and they were all locked down, and some of them were in college still, and it was just a crazy world. So I think trying to get out there and reach them on a local level before you can even reach them on a national level. You really have to get out there and just touch and feel, and then again, the online classes are important because they like interactive. This is the generation that grew up with cell phones. They didn't know any different. They've never not had a cell phone.
Well, remember what Scott said in that disruptor session. He goes, I don't remember what he labeled the generation, but the people being born now, they're never going to live in an environment where there is not AI.
That's right. That's right. And I look at AI, and I, like you had mentioned Scott's presentation, and I think that was one of the most eye-opening. And I said, geez, I don't know that I want to be around to see all that. And I said also, because I'm a writer of technical articles, I might have to go to Chat GPT soon. But I think that takes away from the knowledge that you have and that you've learned along the way, hashtag old. So,
right.
But a lot of experience that I've had, it's kind of sad to think that there's an AI that could actually write articles that I've learned in the industry.
So I've got a lot of friends who are content creators in the electronic world, and there's always this huge conversation: is AI going to take jobs, right? And they asked me to come on the show one day because I'm a cable guy. I'm like, well, you're not going to get AI to pull cable, right? But I can certainly see AI helping a project manager write a scope of work.
Yes.
I can see AI helping an estimator do some research. So I don't think it's going to replace them. I think it's going to make them more efficient. But with the current version of AI that we have now, it's good, but you got to be careful.
Yeah.
You better read whatever it puts out, because it's going to be about 90% good and 10% what in the world is it talking about?
So when you talked about cabling and connectivity, even though it's been around for years, and Jeff was saying that electrical has been around for 100 years, things are changing so quickly that I know that another writer friend of mine, she said she put something on Chat GPT just to try it out. And what happened was she realized that it wasn't up to date with technology.
Yes.
So that's why I personally don't want to use it unless it's going to be something that is not going to be technical.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this. I do, because I use Chat GPT. I used AI for lots of stuff, actually. The AI right now it's running off of what was on the internet 2 years ago.
Right.
And like you said, we move at the speed of light in our industry, so stuff's changing all the time. So you got to be super, super careful with that. Will it get better moving in future versions of AI? I don't know. But I know it's made my job easier, even as a podcaster. When I upload my video, the service that I use, an AI engine writes the description for me. Now, I can write the description, but it's going to take me 5, 7, 10 minutes. It does it in seconds. And that's more time to do other things.
Well, and another thing to think about, Chuck, is, when I'm writing articles, somebody could say to me, I read an article even though I didn't byline it, because I could tell your style of writing.
Yes.
Is AI going to do that? Yeah. Is it going to do my style of writing?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a good point, because it's funny because as a project manager and estimator, I've written a lot of documents and I've read a lot of documents. I know a lot of people in the industry. And it's funny because when I was estimating, if I was reading an RFP coming from like a consulting group, I could tell you who wrote it because I could literally hear their voice in my head as I'm reading it.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right, with AI, it's going to be kind of a bland kind of thing, unless I'm not an AI expert, but yeah, it's going to, I think it's going to change our future, our industry. It's going to impact our industry, even though we're a trade-oriented industry, but I think it's just going to make us better, faster, and it's going to, I like what Scott said when I can't remember where he got the example from, but he said that there was a kid who wrote a homework assignment, they used ChatGPT, and the teacher accused him of
plagiarizing.
No, cheating.
Yeah, I was calling it plagiarizing.
Yeah, cheating. And he goes, well, what is cheating? If I'm using that if I'm going to be using that tool in the future, why is that cheating? Ding.
Yeah. So when we were in school back in the days, right? And we had encyclopedias. That was the old Google, and if you did something, you did it word for word right out of the dictionary, or if you did it right out of the Google or Wikipedia, you knew that somebody was plagiarizing. Well, how do you catch them? And that's just wrong. They're turning into lazy students and lazy professionals.
There's an AI engine that if you get something from ChatGPT, or if you think text is coming from AI, there's another AI engine that you can run that information through, and it'll tell you which engine created it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? That's good.
Yes.
That's good. But we were talking about the younger generation, so how to reach them. And that is the $1 million question. But I think, as we look at events that just happened this week with NECA, and we're still in the middle of it or towards the end, I think trying to reach out and getting them more involved, because you were saying at the very beginning, AI won't create cable pullers.
Right.
And I think we need to focus on that, because that could be a dying.
Yes. I look at it this way. There's a vast mine of untapped talent, because a lot of people in this industry, like me, who are old, and we learn a certain way.
We're doing
we hashtag
old.
Yeah, hashtag old.
And our pictures will come up.
I'm gonna put that in the video. And we learned the old way, books and stuff like that. The new generation doesn't learn that, so we tend to frown upon them or look down on them. But since I started doing the podcast, I started interacting, because that's the whole goal of the podcast, was to get to the young audience. I realized they're better than we were. They're more talented. They're willing to do the extra work. We just got to figure out how to push that button and get them engaged. That's the issue that we have as an industry, because the old guard. We were just talking about that just a few minutes ago when we were getting set up. The old guard. I hate to say this, but the old guard needs to leave. It just needs to go away. And I think once that happens, and we start getting some younger freshmen, that's why I love, when you look at the BICSI board, you're starting to see a more diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the best one is Lee Renfro, right? The Mullet Minute, right?
He's doing a podcast now too. Yeah, so he was great. We have Ryan Davis, who's on the board now, and the way that the governance is running now, it's going to be at-large directors, so it's not going to be regionalized, which opens the doors for more international, more age groups. I think it's going to be great to see what happens to the BICSI board as we go 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
And think about the younger audience. Now when they go to the BICSI website and they look at the board of directors, they don't just see the same type of person through all the positions. They see somebody else who looks like them. They're like, hey, I can do that.
Yes.
I need to look into that.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too. Well, thanks for joining.
Well, hey, cheers.
Until next time, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.